Hey everyone, IdArmed here. Like I mentioned last time on Kingdom Beast Wars Megatron, we're continuing the marathon with a certain monkey. But in order to celebrate how long it's taken for this guy to come out, we gotta go back to a certain time when he was first revealed. Back in time. Alright everyone, it's time for PulseCon. I know most of this stuff has already been leaked in advance, but I'm still excited to see what brand new stuff there is. Hold on a second, what is that on the screen? Don't tell me! It can't be! It's the monkey! After such a fantastic reveal at PulseCon last year, I couldn't wait to get my hands on Optimus Primal. It did take a couple of months, but surprisingly, I got him not too long ago, pretty early, because he's supposed to come out February of 2021. But you know what, who cares? It's time to review the big bot himself, so let's get into it. Welcome to IdArmed Reviews. Today we'll be taking a look at the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Voyager class Optimus Primal. Scheduled for release in early 2021, he's been cited as early as January of 2021, and the figure is based heavily on the character's appearance in the mainframe show, Beast Wars Transformers. Just as expected of most Optimus Primal toys, except for somebody, his beast mode takes the form of an adult silverback gorilla. Just like last review's Megatron, Primal here is much more realistic than his model in the original show. The principal differences are the more darker black compared to the show's dark gray, and the use of fur-looking textures throughout instead of being very smooth on the show and the Masterpiece from a few years back. This gives us a take on Primal we really haven't seen since the original toy, but with the enhanced engineering and detail 25 years later, giving him quite the upgrade. Taking a good look at the head, it also is quite a departure from Primal's pretty friendly face in the original show. Here, he's a lot more mean and grumpy looking, which I'm personally fine with considering the design Hashtag was going for with the rest of this figure. And the rest of this gorilla mode is oh so nice to look at. From the well-detailed and textured fur, to the punctuated chest muscles, and a natural curvature of the body as a whole, once again, it feels like Hashtag is trying to make a fancy model of a gorilla rather than something that turns into a robot. But once again, however, this beast mode isn't all too perfect. But unlike Megatron, most of Primal's issues stem from the apparent parts of the robot mode. Namely, two blue hinges for later features we'll look at, as well as the waist, thighs, and feet on the back half of the figure being pretty unavoidable to the eye. To the designer's credit, most of it gets covered up decently by what can aptly be described as a butt plate. And I don't blame them for having to keep some parts exposed since they're only working on the budget of a Voyager. Aside from that, I'm really loving this beast mode, especially when hanging around his fellow Beast Wars castmates. Primal does in fact have an alternate form for his gorilla mode. By changing the configuration of the legs and straightening him out a bit, he can stand up on his two back legs as often seen in the show. This leads to a lot more human-type posing options than his regular gorilla mode, but in the end I still prefer the regular mode for being a more typical depiction of a gorilla's pose. So for articulation, Optimus Primal does have a lot of it carry over to his robot mode, and as a result, it has a lot more articulation than I initially expected. Starting at the head, it does have a little bit of left and right, but it can also look up this far and down that far. The shoulders can rotate 360 degrees unimpeded. There is a hinge outwards about that far. There is a butterfly joint, which I'll talk about more later. A bicep swivel, an elbow joint going almost 180 actually. Wrist swivel, really tight wrist swivel. The knuckles can open, all four fingers with it. Moving down, if you want to break the sculpt a little bit, the waist can rotate, but to keep the butt plate flush, you just keep it down. Then you can also move the legs back and out. And then he does have knees. And finally, you do have a sort of limited ankle joint. But for a gorilla mode, honestly, it is pretty stunning. It's pretty much about the same that the optimal body from Power to Primes had, but overall, still it's really great to see it on something so small. For features of Primal's gorilla mode, just like the Masterpiece, they're all shared with the robot mode we'll see later on. To start are his included accessories, a pair of cyber blades. Painted silver on the blades, they really help to complete the look we'll see later on in robot mode. After opening Primal's fingers, they slide in comfortably in his hands. Next are the plasma cannons on his forearms. Hidden usually, pushing buttons that are part of the forearms reveals them, just like the Masterpiece. And with two blast effects on each, he can deliver some serious firepower. And lastly, By partially transforming bits for the robot mode, you can flip out his shoulder cannons, which also have blast effect ports on them. With all the features and posability on this figure, Primal really is one funky monkey. Now it's time for Primal to maximize and transform into his robot mode.
So Prime's transformation into robot mode not only is simple, but out of all the figures I own in my collection, is definitely one of the ones that strikes me as being accurate to his original transformation in the show, if that's even possible considering, have you seen those transformations from Beast Wars? But let's get into it. I like to usually start by just the legs because it's going to be pretty easy. You're just going to flip these feet down, or the robot feet. Nothing happens to the beast mode feet. They actually serve as heels. Fold these up, bring these down, and we're actually already done with the legs. Flip the front part of the chest up, and it will let you spin the whole waist around. Next, you're going to take what was the butt plate, as I call it, fold it up, and it's going to tap into a hole right here. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull the whole assembly out, just like this. And this is my favorite part of the transformation. You're going to pull this assembly up, rotate the gorilla head around, and fold it in. Rotate this up, and while you're at it, this is how you actually fold the cannons out. They reside in the back cavity. Push this in, and then you're going to fold this whole panel out. Everything just closes up. Oh, make sure the butterfly joints are out of the way. And to finish, just like in the show, once again, you fold these panels out that hide some of the detail in the biceps. Get everything straightened out. And after, like I said, a very simple conversion for Modern Voyager, we have quite the stunner of a robot mode.
After one of the most accurate transformation to a Transformer source material, this is it. This is the first genuinely perfect robot mode I've reviewed so far. But before I hype everyone up, let's get into the specific details. As usual, starting at the head, just like wow. The attempt at going as accurate to the show paid off extremely well. While I wish the antenna were a bit taller, I can't complain due to how the transformation works. And moving down to the rest of the body, this competes with Megatron in terms of the explosion of color. All of this red, blue, white, and silver complement the gray and black of the gorilla mode extremely well. And the detail that the paint rests on is simple but well done. In particular is Primal's chest plate. The metallic blues, the matte silver and red, and the vent-esque details all create something worthy of a chef's kiss. One more thing to discuss is the proportions of Primal. The big bulky arms and legs with the short, squat torso creates body type we don't see a ton of Transformers. But man, I'd love to see this build show up more often on figures. Before we move on to Primal's features, I have to bring up one word of warning. Multiple owners of Primal have shown that the white paint on the thighs is easily prone to scratching from articulation. And sadly, it has happened to my copy as well on the upper thighs. If or when you guys grab an Optimus Primal, I recommend putting a layer of a clear coat used commonly with model kits to potentially minimize paint scratching. As mentioned earlier in the Gorilla mode, all of Primal's gimmicks and features carry on from it. So the plasma cannons, shoulder cannons, and cyber blades can be used in the bot mode. And with the expanded articulation, they work a whole lot better. Next, flipping out Primal's butt plate on his bot mode reveals a 3mm hole perfect for the Japanese flight stance of your choice. I wish there were blast effect ports to represent his prime jets, but I can live with him just flying around. Lastly, if you own the Deluxe class Fossilized or Paleotrix from the same wave, you can rip his head off and give Primal a skull mace based directly on the original toy. Before we move to articulation, I want to point out 2 points of articulation in particular. In both modes, Primal features joints at the knuckles as well as the butterfly joints, a rarity amongst all retail Transformers, even as big as Commanders and Titans. As a result, Primal can cross his arms, crack his knuckles, grab his cyber blades off of their special storage point, and even hold the Autobot matrix of leadership. I know these are more so articulation points rather than action features, but these are some joints I hope show up on more figures one day.
So Optimus Primal, I'm very happy to say, has the full works when it comes to articulation. It's pretty much on par with Earthrise Optimus Prime if you did buy him last year. So let's start head. You get the full 360 swivel, as well as up this far, down that far. The cannon, when deployed, can hinge all the way up and down and can even go pretty flat, or I don't know why that one's not. That's interesting. The arms are a 360 swivel. It's kind of like a plastic ratchet. I can't really describe it, but no, you can still have it at any position. The butterfly joints I was talking about earlier, the arms go out that far and they're really tight, so be careful actually with those. Full bicep swivel, that more than 90 degree elbow bend is still here, and it takes from the masterpiece in that like there's no seamless connection. It says it's just flat here. 360 degrees swivel at the wrist, bend at the 4 fingers, a 360 waist, but the butt flap, if you have it up for the stand hold, can kind of mess around with it. Legs go out just that far. They go, when that's back, they go out that far, which is really good for a Transformer. 5 swivel, but of course be careful of the paint. For the knee, you get an official bend at about that far, and then if you untab it, it goes back just a bit more. And then the feet are actually pretty interesting. You get a hinge or a pivot, and then also if you break the transformation, you can actually get it to pivot, but you can also have it pivot to begin with just like that. But if you want the whole foot to pivot, yeah, just like that. And then if it counts as articulation, the gorilla mode toes, which form the heels, can move down. So honestly, this is like pretty much for the engineering Hashtag has today. This is pretty much as good as it gets.
A point of contention with fans recently has been Optimus Primal's height. At only 6 inches tall, he scales at about a head shorter than your typical War for Cybertron Voyager. I personally think this will be another Earthrise Cliffjumper situation eventually, where the sum of his parts make up for a smaller scale. And when compared to other Transformers, the shorter size helps to make Primal scale better. Here is Kingdom Optimus Primal with Earthrise Leader Class Optimus Prime, Power of the Prime's Leader Class Optimal Optimus, Kingdom Deluxe Class Cheetor, with Kingdom Core Class Rat Trap, and Kingdom Leader Class Megatron. So, what else can I say about this Optimus Primal toy? After the less than mediocre experience that was the Primal portion of Optimal Optimus, I didn't think Hashtag would deliver for a while. But man, this honestly blew my mind with just how much they packed into a $30 box. I consider this to be truly the perfect Primal for anyone who either grew up with Beast Wars or is looking to get into this subsection of the franchise. And along with the recently released Studio Series 1986 Hot Rod, it also demonstrates that the Voyager scale is where the innovation occurs the most nowadays in this franchise. And to put it simply, Kingdom Optimus Primal is a masterpiece of chug. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you guys are enjoying my look into the Kingdom series so far, as we aren't even done yet. Tune in next time when we take a look at everyone's favorite rodent from Cybertron. See you all next time, and take care.